thinking about these exercises that people like Eugene Gendlin talk about. Exercise E equals focusing, which is a kind of monitoring of the internal state of the body. The way he kind of describes it is you, usually with a partner, you would sit with someone and you would kind of drop your attention down inside the body and try to get a sense of what's going on with your, I guess, your biochemistry and your viscera, to see what it's doing, to see how you feel. And usually you would precede this by some kind of a question. So you would say, I don't know, I'm feeling fine today. A kind of a declarative statement or a question like that. And you would monitor the internal milieu of your body to see how it responds to that kind of an assertion. It's an odd exercise, and there are other exercises like that. It's a slightly odd exercise, and one of the things I've always had a problem with it in relation to is that it feels terribly kind of self-indulgent, really. It feels like, well, it just feels self-centered. Coming out of that kind of me generation, counselling, psychotherapy, cult stuff from the 60s and 70s, really. The way I'm kind of thinking through that, I try to find other ways of interpreting that kind of exercise and the kind of experiences that you get from it, is in relation to, well, in relation to a number of things, really. Firstly, in terms of trying to re-understand what that exercise is, in terms of, well, understand why it feels self-indulgent first off. I think one of the reasons why it feels self-indulgent is because it's a kind of interiority exercise, or it claims a kind of perception which is interoceptive. It is about the interior, and we associate the interior of the body, I think, with senses of a core self and true identity and personal as opposed to interpersonal being, or authenticity, all those kinds of highly personal, highly individuated, highly just self-oriented, really. But there's no real reason why that would be the case, thinking about it. I mean, the sense that we have a self which has those individuated, personal as opposed to interpersonal structures, and that self is interior, is kind of academic, really. I mean, there's no doubt that our sense of self, along with our sense of consciousness, our cognitive powers, all those kind of things, there's no doubt that does emerge from our material body and our brain. But the concept of self being located in the interior of the body is pretty arbitrary, really. There's no particular reason why. I mean, concepts are located wherever you want to put them, so there's no real reason why that would be interior. But I think the habit we have of making that association of interiority with selfness, or location of the self, is one of the reasons why sending one's attention inwards to monitor the internal milieu feels like a move towards oneself, and hence a move towards selfishness or self-centeredness. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's certainly kind of how it feels to me. But the other thing about this monitoring and kind of sensitizing to the internal state of what's happening in your viscera, really, for me, is to do with, or the possible positive nature of it. I don't think it necessarily is an entirely personal process, devoid of any kind of contact with the world and interpersonal relationships. In fact, I think it's completely the opposite in many ways. I mean, certainly if you watch two people talking, the amount of communication that's happening in their words, well, it can be quite dense, but more often than not, there's a whole set of communications going on with their bodies that they're either only partially aware of or not aware of at all. One person will lean forward, the other person will lean back, one person will adopt a kind of open gesture, the other will fold their arms and close up a little bit, and all the much more subtle stuff to do with pauses and gestures and marking time together with hand movements, inclinations of the head, all those kind of stuff is happening. Now, that's not interior, but the sources of that is undoubtedly interior. And that kind of set of communications that's happening there at the level of gross motor movements is probably only a small fraction of what else is going on. Given that the bandwidth of our consciousness is tiny compared to the amount of information which we're capable of taking in through our eyes and ears and other senses, I would be surprised if there wasn't all sorts of other kinds of communication happening between individuals when they're talking together that operated on a much more fine-grained level. And here I'm reminded of that experiment where you show people two identical pictures of an individual, but one picture has been modified so that the pupils of the eye are slightly larger in one than the other. Not one eye than the other, in one picture than the other. And people tend, when people are asked which one of these two people, which one of these two pictures they find most attractive, they almost invariably pick the person who's got the slightly dilated pupils. But they don't know why they're picking that person. They'll say things like, this person seems warmer or seems more friendly. So that there's a very, very subtle piece of communication going in on that. That's affecting the way they feel and presumably the way they operate. What kinds of actions would be taken as a result of that observation and that sense. So as I said, there's a whole set of, and I would imagine that would be one of a whole set of highly subtle, highly finely graded pieces of information that's coming in at all times, over and above anything we might be conscious of. So where am I going with this? I suppose what I'm saying is that God, I've completely lost track. It's something to do with the way that we favour certain senses over others, I think. When we are in communication with a human being, for example, we tend to think that we are watching them very closely and that we are listening to them very closely. But what that I think means is that we are using our eyes and our ears as the major channels through which information comes in, undoubtedly true. But that information is only becoming meaningful once other things are happening to it. One of the major things that's happening to it is that it's being processed in ways which we are barely conscious of, if conscious of at all, and which indeed we are responding to by things like bodily gesture, by mutual eye dilation, by different kinds of visceral responses that we will make in return. And one of the things that this exercise is like, focusing, for example, and attending to the internal milieu of one's own body, is that it allows one to, I guess, tune in to what one's responses are. Because one doesn't respond at the level of the eye, really. When you listen to someone and watch someone closely, it's not your eyes and your ears that are responding, it's the viscera of your body that is responding. It's your biochemistry, it's your various arousal systems that are kicking in, and which are making huge differences to how you would react, how you would respond in your own body, what kinds of subtle and not so subtle gestures you will make yourself, and ultimately what kinds of relationships you're establishing with these people. So I suppose all I'm saying here is that focusing, or something like it, isn't just about a kind of self-centered, how do I feel about this exercise? It's about making sure that the real channels of communication, which are open anyway, are being properly attended to. I think something like that.